Welcome back to the Wise Divine Women podcast, where we help you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you to become the wise divine women that you've been called to be. Today, we have Dr. Deb Butler. She is a certified weight loss life coach. Love it. Certified chiropractor, nutritionist, and acupuncturist. So, just a beautiful array of practice and where she helps women and men, probably on their journey of health. And I love this. And your podcast is called Thinner Peace. And I think that's amazing. Thank you for joining the show.
Pleasure. A pleasure.
So, what brought you on this journey?
Well, that's just such a good question.
Yeah.
And when I was it's an interesting thing because I call myself a weight loss coach and a life coach, and I was a chiropractor. And really, all I've been doing in all of these different roles is trying to help people have a perception, a better perception of their lives, of themselves, be it their bodies, be it their minds, be it whatever it is. And I think that when I was in my 50s and starting to go through menopause, so really that's the name of the podcast. It's Thinner Peace in Menopause because thinner peace, the inner peace is wonderful, but it's really wonderful if you can achieve that when you're in menopause, if you've never achieved it up until this point, which was where I was at. But when I was in my 50s, I was smart. I knew a lot about nutrition. And I also was on a diet roller coaster for all of that time. And I'll speak a little bit about it, but the interesting thing about it is that I was a lifetime Weight Watcher member for all of that time, and I really believed that that was a proper diet and a good way to manage my weight as opposed to eat for life. I was really more thinking in terms of how do I manage my weight? So the way I was managing my weight for most of my life up until I was 50 is I would go to Weight Watchers when I gained the same 20 pounds. And I would go to Weight Watchers, I would follow the point system, and then I would lose that weight, and then I would be back to all my old shenanigans. I knew better. I know what to eat. I tell people what to do. But because I didn't exactly know how to handle what was going on in my own body and emotions, I was still using food for these emotional outlets or holes, even though I believed I was managing my weight.
Right.
And it really wasn't until hitting menopause and not being able to lose that weight easily that this really got my attention as to what are you doing? Why, what makes you think that this is a good thing? I used to think, well, as long as I can lose 20 pounds, I can gain it. I felt I was managing everything.
Right.
And menopause was the gift because it was like, what are you trying to manage? Because what I really learned is at the same time that menopause was upon me, I was also not as happy in the profession that I was in. And I didn't want to work on people's bodies anymore because I was busy working on people's minds while I was working on their bodies. And I figure, why don't I just do the thing I like the most,
Right.
which is working on their minds to help them learn how to be healthier. I don't care if it's what you're eating or if it's how you're exercising or moving your body or how you're running your life. But that's really what I wanted to be of service to. And not being happy in my profession, being a little frustrated also led me to it was more difficult to lose weight, not only because my body was changing, but also because I was having stronger emotions and I was filling them with food and drink so that I wouldn't be so frustrated about my profession.
Very
So
true.
I looked in what really got my attention was a life coach that I had been following, and her name was Martha Beck, and she had written many, many books. And lo and behold, she was holding a seminar. And I just wanted to be around her presence because she talked all about following the North Star of your own body, that your body always gave you your answers. I did that, and lo and behold, it was actually yep, I hear a doggy. That's
Right.
okay.
They'll carry on.
It's nice to have a little okay.
I love that. And that's about, the great point when we do get to this journey of wisdom is that
Yes.
we get to make these choices, and what is our passion becomes our
Yes.
project, right? And that
Yes.
is just such a wonderful, it would be great if we would realize that much earlier in life, but especially when we come to this turning point, this passion overweighs all things. And to be
Yes.
able to find that and still be successful and do, all the wonderful things and have and touch so many people's lives. What a very satisfying point for you.
What it is such a satisfying point, but it was also a very difficult point.
Mm.
And because I think that one of the things that I was really realizing is the more uncomfortable I got, the more I wanted to eat and drink. And it became a little bit more apparent to me. And it was harder to lose weight. So I really realized how much I was putting on this weight thing. And also that because I had met a weight coach, and her first question to all of us was, "Why do you eat when you're not hungry?" And I am a lifetime Weight Watcher member. I know all the tricks about everything. And I go, "What does that have to do with anything?" That was my first response. It's like, just tell me what should I be eating or how should I be doing it? Or what's the problem here? Why do you eat when you're not hungry? And honest to goodness, that is what led me on the journey of going from a chiropractor to life coaching, and also realizing that my body talks to me, not my mind. I've always been listening to my mind.
Right.
And really, our bodies talk to us first through our emotions and lead us in the right direction all the time if we just listen. And because of this weight issue, I was starting to listen. And most people that I work with seem to want to work with me to lose weight. But really, what I want to do is help people find out what's going on inside of them emotionally that they're not following, that is getting in the way of their true passion and true inspiration. And I think when we're younger, I think we are doing what we're meant to be doing.
Hmm.
It's just that I think we become more of who we always should have been as we get older and we get to know ourselves better. Because I think our minds are very, very socialized, especially as women. And those of us who have families or decide to get married, I mean, it's just this whole big thing. Have a profession, not have a profession. And we get to a point in these where if you're raising children, you may be at the end of it. If you're married, you may be done with that. If you're not married, you may decide you want it. If you whatever it is, you see things in a totally different light. And what I have found is that when you find out why you eat when you're not hungry, you can find out how to find your own passion and inspiration just by noticing when you eat when you're not hungry. So all the coaching that I do is off of eating when you're not hungry and what it brings up and what you're doing. It's really fascinating.
Very fascinating, that's for sure. And that is always the question, right? What do you find to be the most common link for women eating when they're not hungry?
Well, what most women say is, "I just love food. I'm a foodie." And I would say, to this day, so do I. That is not a reason to eat when you're not hungry. When you say that, it sounds good. Well, I do it because I love food, but really you do it because something is going on inside of you, because your body is basically saying to you, stop. It's a feeling, you feel it in your body. Unless you lose touch with it, like if you were doing what I was doing for 30 years, I had no connection to that. That's not even why I ate, and it's not even why I stopped. I ate on a point system, or I ate because I was celebrating. I had nothing to do with being hungry or full. And so when this comes up, it's the whole idea that we were wired from the minute that we were born that our bodies tell us, feed me, and our bodies say, okay, it's time to stop. And when we lose connection with that, we lose connection with a lot of different things about our body. It's just not eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. It's also, what do you do when you're in pain? What do you do when you're tired? What do you do when your body is signaling physical things to you and you're not listening? Do you end up getting sick? Do you end up gaining weight? Do you end up being too tired? Do you end up not doing what you want to be doing because you don't have the energy to do it?
Yeah,
Because we're not connected.
it's very true. Big disconnect with all of those points. And it's so fascinating. Like I'm sitting here going, listening to you, and I'm
Yeah.
reeling my own life with myself, right?
Yes.
And again, it's this for myself, it's the not eating enough, I think, is my issue. And that only eating once a day may not be what my body needs, but I'm not hungry. So it's just
Oh,
a,
but I
yeah,
think if you're not hungry, I mean, I think everybody's bodies are different. So if you're eating once a day because your body says this is when it's time to eat, it may be perfect for you.
Mhm.
If you're
Mhm.
doing it for a different reason and you're hungry a lot during a lot of parts of this day and you're just not eating, that's a different story. I don't know if that makes sense because I don't know that you should eat 3 times a day or 5 times a day or I mean, there's so much information out there in terms of how often you should eat or when you should eat.
Right.
But I think the beginning of and I've even had some women say to me, "I'm not even sure I get hungry." I go, "Well, why do you eat?"
Because they
Because
have
I should. And some of these people, like, I'll just say, I don't want you to eat until you feel hunger because it is there. And we may not even be connected into what that feeling even feels like anymore because we've been following something external for so long that we don't know what it feels like.
So, with your podcast, like, what are you teaching? What are you talking about their weight? Are you talking about just a sec here? Are you talking about weight? Are you talking about trying to, get them emotionally prepared and having them understand
The
what's
way
going on? And what
Yes.
forms do what sort of tips do you give them in helping them to identify the difference between the two?
I think it's such a great question because I've done 525 podcast episodes.
Wow.
And I never thought how I could come up with so much stuff,
Yeah.
but this is such an interesting thing, and so the way the podcast started out when I started it many years ago is first identifying if you're one of those people that I'm talking about. Do you know when you're hungry? Do you know when you're full? Or you've just been following a diet? Are you in menopause, and are you finding out that all your tricks just don't work anymore? So first, do you wanna hear what I have to say?
Mhm.
And weight loss and weight gain is just kind of like a symptom of what's really going on. So, in the beginning of the podcast, and for much of what I talk about, we first just talk a little bit about what is physical hunger, what does it feel like, and the degrees of hunger and fullness. So, I use a physical hunger scale. If you just imagine it, it goes from a -10 to a +10, and -10 is starving, and a +10 is stuffed. And the goal is to eat between the 2s.
Buddy, go upstairs.
So you start first you have to decide, I wonder what a -10 even feels like in my body. For many people, they may not know what starving actually feels like, but you start coming up with a number of how hungry you are, and a -2 is this whisper of hunger. It's not strong, but it's there. And for me, I feel it more in my stomach, but I also feel a little bit more lightheaded, just a little bit. There are other things going on other than what I feel in my stomach at a -2. The farther down it goes, the more weak I start feeling, and then I start getting a little angry, and I can't think as well, and my stomach starts growling. So that's a stronger number. So first we identify what hunger feels like, and then we go to what fullness feels like. So the goal is a +2, even though you can eat to a +10. So many people will say, "Well, I know when I'm hungry and I know when you're full." I go, "Well, let's put some numbers on it because sometimes what you're calling hunger is a -8. I mean, you wait until you're starving and you're saying, "I'm hungry." And maybe sometimes what you call full is way beyond a +2 or what your body would indicate as satisfaction. And we're wired to know this, and it's only because we stop paying attention because of all of these external diets, we're paying attention to something outside of I was paying attention to points, and I wanted to make sure I got all those points in, and I like to use them all at one time. I was so afraid of going hungry that I would just eat what
So you were just talking about the grading scale from 1 to 10 negative and really having people identify how they felt in their hunger and if they felt satisfied and if they had identified their true understanding of that, right?
Yes, yes. And I think it's very important before you get into emotions that you first just understand if you're hungry and if you're full and what those mean and really identifying those numbers. So then once you understand this, and I go through this in the podcast too, basically the whole thinner piece process that I use is in my podcast.
Mm.
And this physical hunger scale, once it's identified, then we start talking about identifying emotional hunger and the strengths of it. So when you know you're not hungry, when you know you're at a +2, or you're at a +3, or you're at a +4. But let's just say you're at a +2, so you're done. Body says, "Okay, thanks, that was really great. Let's go do something else." The brain or the mind has a mind of its own because it's been trained a certain way by you. So, what some people will say to me, something very simple with emotional hunger is, well, I was just eating something and it was so good. And that's why I want to keep eating. So we're not in physical hunger anymore.
Right.
Now we're looking at emotions, and emotions go from a -10 to a +10. -10 is the worst you can feel, and the +10 is the best you can feel. And urges, which is this urgent desire to eat, falls in the emotional hunger scale. So you can give urges numbers also. Just consider them an emotion.
Mhm.
So when your brain is just saying, oh my gosh, this is so good, I want to keep eating it. Once you can become aware of this is what's going on, because a lot of people don't even know this is going on until we slow it down. They
Right.
just think they're eating until they're full, even though it might be a +4 or +5. They don't realize they've gone past physical hunger, fullness, and now they're into the desire or the urgency to keep eating, which is considered an emotion. So you wonder, or my question is, well, how strong is that urge? It's going to be a negative number. -10 is so strong, and a 0 is you don't feel, it's neutral. So let's just say it was so delicious and they're going to give it a -5 or a -6. Means it's a pretty strong urge. And just consider it like an emotional hole that you're going to fill with food because your brain's telling you when something is delicious, we keep eating. As opposed to question the thought, I don't have to keep eating just because it's delicious. Like, what a concept.
Right.
You've been believing your brain it's a neural pathway that if something is good, you keep eating. And until you realize that your brain is feeding you something that is not really real, you can question it. You become aware of it. So,
Mm.
a better thought may be it's delicious, but I can stop.
Right. And the
Now,
same would go the other way, right? If you're feeling sad,
It can
having some
be
ice
it can be
cream.
those emotions too.
Yeah.
So it can be sadness, but an urge falls in the same place. So I'm just talking about an urge, and then I'll
Mhm.
bring in
Mhm.
another type of emotion. But I like to bring in an urge first with the emotional hunger scale because it's something that most people can relate to if they can't relate to sadness or anger. They can relate to this, I just want to keep eating. So the urge to just want to keep doing it can be measured. And
Mhm.
then you can realize that what you're doing with that food is you're just filling that hole. It has nothing to do with physical hunger. So you can either feel the urge, which nobody wants to do because it's uncomfortable, or they can fill it with food and not feel it anymore. So that's like just an urge, simply put. And then you said like sadness. So sometimes somebody may be very, very angry. We'll just take anger because anger is almost easier to relate to than sadness. I don't know how
Yeah.
many women I've talked to were so angry they couldn't stop eating.
Yep. Yep. I can
Right?
relate. Yes.
What?
I can relate,
Can you
absolutely.
relate? Yeah,
Yeah.
and all of this is a training that we've done to our brain over the years that we have trained our brains to believe that when we have these discomfort or these uncomfortable emotions, we should eat. So we're training our brains. We have neural pathways that say, "You're uncomfortable. Let's eat." And my goal is to help break those neural pathways by becoming aware of what's actually going on. So you're not out of control because a lot of women will come and say, "Well, I just cannot control myself around food." And once you use that term on yourself, you will not be able to control yourself around food. You will believe that food is controlling you. But the only reason you think that is because you have a thought and you are uncomfortable and you're just filling it up with food as opposed to feeling the discomfort, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Much about that with my practice, it is this unwinding of things that I talk about often with
Mhm.
women. And it goes the same way with our eating patterns, right? We have to unwind ourselves, and that
Exactly.
revelation of understanding is really, sometimes like eye-opening for women because they don't put the 2 together, right?
That's right. It's more like it's easier to badmouth themselves, to say bad things about me. I just like there's something wrong with me. That's all.
Yeah.
As opposed to being able to say, I'm just thinking in a way that's not helping me. And I'm thinking this way because I thought it would help me. I mean,
Right.
listen, when we have these strong emotions and we can have a chocolate chip cookie and actually fill a hole so we don't have to feel it for a little bit, it's not a bad idea. And it's very protective.
Mhm.
But it's also something that we end up wiring our brain to do, so that pretty soon it does feel like we're out of control because the brain is running the show, because it's wired to do it. It wasn't wired to do that when we were born, and we can retrain our brains anytime we want to do something different, and that's really what all of these medications are about now. I mean, they're affecting the brain and they're affecting these urges, the food noise.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, it's good to know that we have a medication that affects the brain in exactly the centerpiece process that I created. But you also can train your brain if you just want to become aware of what's going on in it to begin with. And I'm not saying anything negative about the medications because I think for some people it might be just what they need.
Yeah.
And in the same rate, I think that before these medications came out, my goal was to do what these medications do.
Right.
That
But you
is the
must
goal.
find it to be a wonderful opportunity for women who can't get past that point, right? But
Yes,
it's still the important thing for a lot of women to realize you can't just do the fancy thing, the medications or diets
that's
or,
right.
all these beautiful things that have come out without understanding yourself first,
Yes,
emotionally, physically, and the foundation of your health, right? Like making sure you
yes.
have all these things set in place because then you're never really resolving the biggest issue of all, right?
I couldn't say it better.
Yeah. It's
I
so
couldn't say it
important.
better.
Yeah. I mean, all these fancy things are great, but it doesn't matter because you haven't figured out what's going on in your mind,
That's
right?
right.
That's the biggest issues.
And you have less of an opportunity to have this reconnection, a mind body reconnection.
Yeah.
And if I would have decided to do that in my 50s, I'd still be a chiropractor for
Yeah.
sure. I would still be doing that because
Mhm.
I would bypass all of it.
Right.
I might not I might my weight may be different, right? But it doesn't
Mhm.
solve anything. And that's
No.
why, like, when you said, "Well, are you a weight loss coach?" It's like, I mean, and it's like, I think weight gain is a symptom. That's all
Right.
it is. It's a symptom of a disconnection for some people.
Right.
And if you can figure out that disconnection, and I really feel like the work that I do helps people, just like it helped me, get reconnected not only to are you hungry and are you full, but what do you want in your life? When you talk about passion and you talk about inspiration, that's a feeling you get in your body too. And when you start becoming aware of all of these emotions, they're all driving you to do something.
Mhm.
Some of them feel better than others, but if
Yeah.
I hadn't have felt all the discomfort that I felt when I was still practicing chiropractic, I could not be doing what I'm doing now, which is so, so
Much
fulfilling.
Yeah, and so honestly much more important, right? That connection that we need as a woman
Yeah.
for ourselves and understanding our responses so that we can grow from that
Yes. I
is
think it's
great.
yeah.
As much as an alignment is amazing, getting my
Yes.
head on
Yes.
straight,
Of course.
but the inner connection, the mind-body connection is something that's really important to have for yourself.
Yeah, and, like, a lot of people will say, "Why do you wanna lose weight?" And they'll say, "Because I wanna be healthier."
Mm,
And you would think that that's compelling, but it truly is not compelling to anybody.
right.
And yet, what I find is you have to have emotional health first before you can ever have you don't lose weight to get better physically. If you lose the weight because you become emotionally fit, because you have the opportunity to become more emotionally fit by just figuring out these emotions that are going on and being connected to your body, the physical portion comes second. And most people think they wanna get it first and then get their life together. once I lose all that weight, then and actually, it's once you get your head together, then it becomes easier to do
Uh,
everything else that you wanna
yeah.
do, and most people think of it the exact opposite.
Yeah. And then
So
they're
I
never
think
really living their lives, right? They're always
and don't
waiting for
know
that
it,
moment.
and don't know it, and don't know it. So it's like, menopause is, a time to pause,
It is. Yeah.
and
Really it is.
And I think it helps you. It's like almost like you can find more about who you always have been. You almost have another opportunity to do it because you have so much more wisdom, so many years of experience to say, okay, now what do I really? It seems like this becomes a big questioning time of
Mhm.
who am I and what do I want? And it's kind of like the exact opposite of adolescence. It's a hormonal problem, a different hormonal issue, but it's still the same kind of questions with
Mhm.
different years of experience. So it's kind of like the new adolescence. It's like, who am I? What do I want to be? Where do I want to go?
Right.
And you have so much more available to you if you take care of the obstacles that are in your way, which are usually uncomfortable emotions.
Right. And they're icky and people don't like to face them, but the true opportunity lies in understanding them, seeing them for what they are, and then building better tools like your podcast and so that we can have a better journey, a better understanding and better hope in overcoming and reaching our goals that we've set in front of us, right?
Yeah, yeah, and, like, with my podcast, I also offer a jumpstart guide that it goes with the podcast, so a lot of the different podcasts that I do, you can use this guide that'll help you fill in your own numbers, understand what your numbers are, and that's just by going to Peace with Deb, and you can get that book and Thinner Peace and Menopause, the podcast, and the idea that thinner peace, the inner peace, is
Mm.
the only way that you wanna go through menopause and beyond, is peacefully.
Right, right. I just love that, Deb. I can just imagine how the women that come across your path and the testimonies that you have is just astounding because it's just this whole connection that women don't realize and the system that you have set in place allows them this step by step like not easy,
Exactly.
but it's step by step. And so it keeps it simple for women to understand on this journey, which is already a difficult journey for some health-wise and
That's right.
or family-wise anyways, but that is so amazing. I
Yeah.
think that's just an incredible opportunity and peace, that's often a question that I have with women when I'm talking with them
Mhm.
as clients or doing their follow-up calls with them is you can hear it in their voices as they don't have this peace, they may not have this inner joy, and it's always a hurdle for them to get to that point, right?
Mhm.
So, like you've said, stepping back and understanding that process, even simply from a food perspective or in understanding themselves, the challenges that lay ahead and where their disconnect lays between their mind and body.
Yeah, and the whole idea of you can be thin peacefully or
Mhm.
you can be thin with no peace. Being thin
Mhm.
all by itself. I've been thin so many times unpeacefully without peace. I don't even want to talk about it. And, I even work with women
Yeah.
who don't have to lose weight because they're so over managing
Right.
and they're frightened to death of gaining weight and frightened of food. There's no peace with any of it with the
No.
number on the scale that is acceptable to them, but
Right.
there's no and I work with a lot of people like that too. And this thinner piece idea, I love it because it's not about being thin, it's about being peaceful. It's kind of the same thing about emotionally fit. You get
Right.
emotionally fit first so you can be physically fit. You
Mhm.
you become peaceful first so that you can be whatever way that you wanna do it, but you do it in a peaceful way. Peace with food, peace with your life, peace
Mhm.
with your body, peace in the mirror, looking at yourself. How do you look at yourself? How do you talk to yourself?
Right.
And, do we see with our eyes or do we see with our brains? And I think it's such a great exercise just to think about because I think many of us, we look in the mirror, or at least me, and I start pulling my face up and I start looking at everything that's wrong. Now, am I seeing really through my eyes, or am I seeing a perception of what my brain is thinking, and then it's giving me feedback? So it's like
Right.
I work in the mirror just trying to change my perception about what I'm seeing because it's not my eyes as much as it is my brain.
Right. Right.
Do you kind of know what I'm talking about
I
when I
know
say that?
exactly what you're saying, right? And my mind goes to this sense of there are women who are larger, like myself. Let's say
Mhm.
I'm not large. I'm large, but I'm not large. But they have this sense or this glow or this aura about them that they're just sexy and beautiful and amazing, and they just oozed
Oh,
excitement, right?
yeah, I
But that's
got chills.
because
Mm.
they have peace with it. They love
You're
their
giving me
body.
chills, you're giving
Yeah,
me chills. Really, I got chills up
yeah.
and down my body right now.
I mean, they love themselves and they love the way they are and they appreciate their body. They probably have good self-care routines, speak affirmations over their bodies, and they have a good connection, but probably understand relationship with food, relationship with the mirror in that aspect. So, I mean, no matter what size women
It
are,
doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. It's what's within.
It's your perception of what
Yeah.
you're looking at,
Yeah.
and that perception is under your control. And I'm not talking about what the scale says.
No.
I'm talking about what your brain sees when
Mhm.
it looks out at you.
Right.
And that is, to me, the work
It
is
is.
how Marianne Williamson said from The Course in Miracles that a miracle is a change in perception. And I really believe that a lot of the miracles that happen in the work that I do happen because not because even their bodies change or their life changes,
Right.
but because they change the way their brain is seeing things. And that is what I feel I am called to do. So that's why I say, am I a weight loss coach? No, I think I'm more like a miracle worker, is really
I was
what
gonna
I
say
think.
I was gonna say is it's that, right? You are a miracle worker and in inciting change in women so that they can change their inward appearance so their outward appearance matches, right? Like it's
Yes.
yeah,
And it
it's
changes. The outward appearance changes.
yeah,
I mean, when you're saying about people glowing regardless of size, regardless of it's
mhm,
because of their perception of themselves.
yeah,
You can see it, you can feel it.
yeah. No, it's so true. I have a girlfriend who every day, even her glass of water, she likes writing notes under her glass of water because she believes in the physics of water.
I understand.
My life is a place for miracles.
I love it.
So every day she's that and
I
she
love it.
oozes. She just glows. She's just amazing. But that's just, one of these great
Mhm.
things that we do to really help change our mindset. And it matters in any situation. Honestly, whatever we're faced with, there's, people who are ill and it's unfortunate situations for themselves, but they're even their mindsets. Once their mindset changes, the outcome changes with disease sometimes or
True.
they are more at peace with the situation
That is true.
when they have that connection and they have that inner peace. Then
True.
the scenario, the community, the people around them also change, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess the best way to put this is when we talk about thinner piece, really, we're talking about the inner piece that leads to whatever it is that you want.
Hmm.
And am I a weight loss coach or am I a miracle worker? Well, I think I'm just changing the whole thing over. I will say this that I love to use food to help people understand what these emotional holes are and how they're working in their life. So I love the idea of food for bringing up all your stuff because it
Does.
does. It
It
does,
does.
probably more so than anything. And so for that reason, it's a wonderful thing to do if you're not at peace with food and you wanna become peaceful with food, it will be the way that you will become more peaceful in your whole life. It's
Absolutely
almost
true.
like a metaphor.
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is. And I love how you put that because it is the easiest thing that we've reckoned with, right? We're fed from the breast.
That's right.
We're part of the family. Food is part of the community. You can't live without food. So it is it's that pinnacle point that recognizes your challenges, right?
That's right. I mean, you get a lot of opportunities every day to look at it,
Yeah,
right? And if there's a system for how you can look at it, if you don't feel like you are at peace with food, then I have a system to help you figure out how to do it.
I love that. So that's Peace with Deb is the
That's
little
right.
handout, and the podcast is Inner Peace and Menopause.
That's correct.
I love it. I think it's so fantastic. I love talking with you today because it's really like spun my head around to like, okay, I need to do that myself for
Oh,
sure. And
good.
I'm sure the listeners are like, oh, I can totally understand what she's
I
talking
hope
about.
so.
And I should dig into deep with that as well, especially when you're trying to manage or wade your way through menopause, because that's when
Right.
these things start to surface again. When you have
They
time, you've slowed down.
That's right. And because the emotions are so much stronger, that's why I like to use menopause, because if you've been feeding your emotions, because a lot of people say to me, "I'm just so hungry all the time now." And I go, "You're not physically hungry,
Yeah.
but the emotions are so strong that if you're used to feeding emotions, you are hungrier more often than you used to be, but you are emotionally hungry more often than you used to be. And it's very easy to put it off on physical hunger,
Hmm.
but it's usually not the case."
Right. Right. What is one last question, Deb?
Sure.
What is a word of wisdom that you hold yourself to or something that you always end up sharing often?
I think one of the things is treat yourself as your most beloved. I think we've been taught to treat the people that we love the most in our life in a special way. But I don't think that we've been taught to treat ourselves as our most beloved in the most special way.
Very true. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Very, very true. I love that, Debs. I hope everyone has really enjoyed this podcast today. I think we've really touched on some really important points that each of you can recognize about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that reaching out to the Thinner Peace and Menopause podcast, getting Deb's resources that she has, and we'll have all those in the show notes, but
Yeah.
listen to the podcast, learn how you can change yourself from this perspective that we spoke about today, because food is part of our lifestyle from morning to
That's
night.
right.
It's just you can't live without it. And
That's right.
having that relationship change for yourself for inner peace changes your total environment and your community around you, right? So
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much, Deb, for
Thank
putting up
you.
with my dogs today and just being part of the show. And thank you again.
You gave me chills more times than I can say, so thanks for the chills.
Anytime. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you.